Six Nations Sunday game, England and Italy, both sides on the wrong side of the scoreboard. Last week, England only pretty narrowly. I feel like English social media is kind of, or at least the rugby media's gone bonkers about Eddie and replacing George Ford, well, putting on George Ford and replacing Marcus Smith and not replacing Cowan Dickey and blah de blah. It was a pretty close game. So I don't think it's too doom and gloom for England just yet. And Italy got pretty well beaten by the French, but certainly had enough from that game to kind of hold their heads pretty high. Away trip to France. So yeah, we're in Italy for this one. It's the Sunday game. It's 4 o'clock local time, 3 o'clock GMT. Got an Aussie ref. A lot of Aussie refs this weekend. But yeah, we'll go through the squads, some of the stats from last week, the recent results between the teams. And you guys can let me know your thoughts on how this one is going to pan out. Italy, they've made a few changes. They're still sticking with the the 6-2 split, which they had last week. They obviously, well, Kieran Crowley, the Italian coach, obviously feels like physicality and, you know, the ability to compete for 40 minutes plus then another 40 minutes is going to be key. And I seem to remember from last week's game, they conceded the majority of the points in the second half of each half, if memory serves. So come out of the blocks, they're okay, they're competitive. First 20 minutes are close, and then towards the end of the half is when they tend to ship the points. So maybe that's kind of the logic behind the 6-2 split as well. You get a little bit extra legs out of your forwards. They've still got Fischetti and Lucchesi as their number 1 and number 2, but Ceccarelli comes in at number 3. They've also got Traorè on the bench, and Pasquale has dropped to the bench. So yeah, it's a little bit of rotational stuff in the Italian front row. Cannone and Ruzza are the same lock-in duo. I think they were okay last week without doing kind of anything phenomenal. The line-out stats were pretty good. I think it was like 14 out of 16 or something. So kind of acceptable numbers, but you'd like to be getting as close to 100% as you can. The back row, Steyn comes in at number 6, which means Negri drops to the bench, and Negri was pretty physical last week. Lamaro is still there, a captain, and he's 7, and he got through a ton of work last week. He's a kind of really pleasing guy to watch. Very just kind of that huge work rate. You know, there's those guys who just do that, right? Guys like Hamish Watson, you know, Michael Hooper, and even Richie McCaw back in the day. Classic sevens who just get through tons of work. Yeah, he's just another one of those guys. So I look forward to seeing how far his career can go. But so far, so good without kind of wanting to put too much pressure on him. Halafihi's getting a second cap at number 8. So yeah, it's pretty stable. Braam coming in as a bit of a big physical presence, but you're replacing Negri, so it's not kind of a huge difference in style from those two, and Negri is still on the bench, so he'll be looking to bring some fresh legs on probably early in the second half, I would say. The backs are Varney and Garbisi, so same 19 combo as last week. Zanon and Brex are the same 12-13. Monty Ioane is still there on the left wing. He'll be hoping to see a little bit more ball, although he did okay with what limited ball he had last week. Mori comes in on the right wing because Michele, the youngster, after scoring a try, the youngest Six Nations try scorer, I think, is it ever, or was it in a long time? He's out injured, so Mori comes in on the right wing, and Padovani is still there at fullback, and he looked you know, pretty secure in terms of being able to get around the track and cover for those high balls, although I seem to remember they put the replacement fly half at fullback for the end of the game, if memory serves. That was Mori, who's also still on the bench this week. Other forward replacements, you've got Cici, you've got Negri, like I mentioned. Cici's fresh in the squad. Negri drops from the bench. Pettinelli is there, so he's got 2 caps. Fusco is the reserve halfback. He's got 2 caps, and I mentioned Mori got his first cap last week, so it's not the most experienced bench, but youth and development seems to be the order of the day with this Italian team. And as I mentioned, they weren't bad against France last week. They certainly got beaten, and there's certainly areas for improvement, but they were better than last year anyway. England, they've made a few changes as well. Eddie has kind of rotated things around a bit. Gens, George, and Stewart is the front row, so he's replaced 2 of his starters with 2 of the bench guys, or his finishers, if you want to put it that way. George comes in for Cowan Dickey, who drops to the bench, and Stewart comes in for Sinclair, who drops to the bench. asked in the press conference, is this kind of punishment for Cowan-Dickey's error last week? No, we've got two good hookers and, you know, they both need some game time. So that was Eddie's answer to that one. Yules comes in to start in the locks because Itoje is playing in the loose forwards this week. Ezekwe is still there, so Itoje is at 6. Remember, Ludlam got injured, and I thought Ludlam, no one's really talking about him. He was quietly pretty good last week, you know, cracked through a few run meters, got through a few tackles, at least a turnover or two. So, yeah, it's unfortunate for him that he's out, but Maro's there and Eddie's looking to see him carry the ball a bit more, which is, I don't know. I've been looking at Maro Itoje's stats for Yonks, and to be fair, he's been playing lock most of the time, and locks tend to not have great ball in hand stats, but yeah, Maro's big on tackles, big on dominant tackles, big on turnovers, sometimes big on penalties conceded, line-out stats, but running stats, defenders beaten, has tended not to be his thing. So I'll be interested to see how well he does in that role. At 6, Curry's there at 7. He's still captain, and Don Brandt starts at 8. So Sam Simmons drops to the bench. If you put Simmons or Don Brandt at 8, it's going to be kind of good news for England either way, because those guys are both cracking players, very dynamic. Interestingly, Randall gets a start at number 9. I think a lot of England fans will be happy with that. He didn't get a single minute last week. Ben Youngs played the whole 80, so that's pleasing. I'm sure England fans will be looking for him to run a wee bit, maybe kick a little bit less than what we saw last week. That being said, I don't think Ben Youngs' kicking game is necessarily a bad thing. It's just a balancing act, eh? Sometimes kicking, because that's the strategy when there's opportunities on, is maybe not the order of the day, but sometimes he does kick really well, so I'm not too hard on Ben Youngs. But yeah, I'm pleased to see Randall get a start. Him and Marcus Smith are a pretty bloody exciting 19 combo. Slade and Marchant are 12 and 13, so Marchant moves in from the wing. Apparently he kind of wasn't at full fitness last week, or didn't have a proper build-up, so they didn't want to chuck him into the midfield, but he is in the midfield this week, and Slade's there at 12. Noel comes in on the left wing. Remember, he got like 1 minute. Spent most of the time waiting for scrums to be reset last week on the left wing. Malins is still there on the right wing, and Freddie Stewart, as a drop of pen, is still there at fullback. Other guys, Ollie Chesham will get his debut if he comes on, so congratulations to him. Ben Youngs, George Ford, Elliot Daly drops to the bench as well. So, yeah, it's largely just Ludlam out and then Chesham in, and everyone else has just kind of shifted around with not too many changes. Statistically last week, Italy knocked on the ball too much for a team which was in, you know, the 40% margins for possession. You know, you can sometimes understand if the team who's got a ton of possessions knocking it on more, but it was a bit too much from them. 12 knock-ons in their game. Like, in comparison, England had 5 in pretty rotten conditions, and England had a lot of ball. Their tackling percentage was like okay, 87%, 158 tackles. So, yeah, as I said, they only conceded 4 tries against France at home, which is not bad, all things considered. They did kick a lot, 30-something kicks from hand, and it was a bit aimless at times. And Garbisi was their top guy for run meters, which is like cool, because Garbisi is a good player, but sometimes you feel like he's trying to do everything himself, and you know, that the team needs to stand up. But like, he was even box kicking at one point, which is pretty cool. The fact that your number 10 can jump in and box kick, but he shouldn't have to, right? So yeah, Italy. Kieran Crowley's talked about focusing on defence, and that's what they need to get right if they are going to be competitive. England dominated possession and territory, especially in that first half against Scotland, but really did fail in large periods to generate like just that, you know, offensive ability, like clean breaks, defenders beaten. It just wasn't happening. The Scottish defence was pretty suffocating. England's tackling percentage was at 85%, which is actually lower than what Italy had in their game against France. So maybe a little bit concerning. Scotland's attack was able to, goodness me, was able to find some pay. England's midfield also, between the two midfielders who started, 30 run meters and 2 defenders beaten. Sometimes you want just a big ball carrying, block busting midfielder like a Tuilangi in there at 12. Slade's not that guy. Slade's a distributor, and you know, he's quite able to unlock a defence in his own way, but it's generally not through big kind of don't argue carries. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go against the Italian midfield. Also, lots of kicking from England, 32 kicks in their game, but as I mentioned, Ben Youngs was doing a bit of that. It's always about finding that kind of happy medium. Kick when it's on, but sometimes, you know, put the ball through the hands narrow the defence, find the space. Easier said than done, but anyway, Curry was their top tackler, and Sinclair was second. So yeah, we'll see how they go defensively. Recent history between the sides, it's all England. England's never lost to Italy over the last 5, so that makes it obvious that it's 5-0 to England. The average score across the last 5 games is 43-10, so England averaging, you know, kind of 30 plus points. Victories over Italy in their games. The most recent one at Twickenham last year, 41-18. Prior to that, 34-5 if you're looking at the game in Rome. And 2018 in Rome, 46-15. So England tend to have a pretty good time against the Italians. So we'll see if they're kind of able to use this chance to back up after last week. Remember, the Italians are on one less day's rest because they played on the Sunday last week, whereas the English played on the Saturday. So an extra day's rest, but still a full week for the Italian guys. It's not like the French who are playing a Sunday and then a Saturday the next week. So, yeah. Interestingly, though, at under 20s level, England just got beaten by the Italians for the first time ever. Just putting that out there, 6 points to 0. So, yeah, there's kind of ominous signs for the future, or very encouraging signs for the future if you're looking at it from an Italian perspective. I think loads of us want these youngsters to come through and step up at international level. Predictions-wise, the bookies have got England by 24, and the rugby forecast algorithms got England by 25. So England predicted to be pretty comfortable winners over the Italians. We will see how these teams match up. It's on ITV for you guys in the UK. Remember, I talk about it all the time. If you're outside one of the free-to-air territories, you just use a VPN, you connect to the UK, and you jump on to one of these glorious free sites like ITV, like BBC, like Virgin Media One in Ireland, like RTE, and you jump on and watch the games. If you want to give that a crack, link in the description for ExpressVPN. They're an affiliate of the channel. They do a money-back guarantee, 30 days. I use them to watch the URC and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, pretty useful tool, I reckon. But, yeah, you guys let me know what your thoughts are. How do you reckon England are going to go? Is Eddie going to get it right? Has he got it right with his selections? Do you think the Italians can follow in the footsteps of their under-20s brethren, or is that still a few years away? Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.